People think that discipline is so consistent, but it's not. Discipline only appears in very specific emotional moments. Most people have never thought about that. Like, they think discipline is just something that you have and you get to keep it and it just is always there. But somehow everyone has undisciplined moments. Like, let's just be honest. Discipline exists, but only in extremely specific moments. But if you don't know when those moments are, then you're not going to actually know what's going on when you're not feeling discipline. You'll just call it a lack of discipline, and it's not true. You've been disciplined the whole time. You were disciplined since the moment you decided to be disciplined, but it only shows up in very specific moments because you're human, and it's that way for every single human, because discipline only works in a neutral state. A neutral state is when everything is neutral. Okay, so when things feel easy, when things feel calm, it only happens when the plans you have are realistic and they're working out. And it only happens when you feel like the rules that you've set for your life or for whatever thing you're doing to be disciplined in, let's say in the gym, like you feel like the rules you've set, or maybe in money, the discipline rules you've set to be with money, you like it only works when those rules make sense. So those are the three things. When it's easy, when you're in a calm, easy state, when everything feels easy, when the plans that you set feel realistic, and the rules that you've set make sense. That's when discipline works. It works when we're all in that type of state. But guess what? Money decisions don't rarely happen when we're in those type of states. If you think about it, you only really have to make a decision when something needs to change. Something only really needs to change if something's went wrong. So you only need to make moves or make decisions or pivot or change something in your life when something needs change. Otherwise, everything feels calm. Plans are going according to plan. Like, the rules feel easy. Like, everything you've set feels calm. But that's not all the time. It's very rare that your money decisions are going to happen in those calm states. It normally happens in a trigger state. And this is when you're feeling urgent, when you have excitement about an opportunity, when you're feeling frustrated about an opportunity, you feel like there's some scarcity around your lifestyle, when there's fear about an opportunity you may have, or maybe even simple boredom, when nothing's going wrong, and instead of things actually being wrong, you try to make things wrong because you're bored and you just want something to go wrong so you can have something to do. We all do that. We all at one point, like, think about it genuinely. In your life, have you ever made something what it wasn't? You turned a situation that was normal and regular, and you made it something that you wanted to fix, and made it something into something you needed to change because you were simply bored. Okay, so those are all of our trigger states. We have urgency, excitement, we have frustration, we have scarcity, fear, and boredom. Those are our major trigger states. And every single one of them changes behavior, and you may have 2 or 3 of them more than the others. Most people have 2 or 3 major trigger states, and you can go back and watch that part of the video to recognize which ones are yours. But I want to explain why discipline actually collapses. It's not disappearing, okay? It just is your brain switching into a short-term relief. So you have had a situation in your life where a big expense popped up or something unexpected happens, and you need to make a decision. You've had a recent job loss, something needs to change. You've had a health diagnosis, something needs to change. You realize you were doing something wrong with your finances and you need to change it now. More specifically, you realize, okay, I need money for something, or you realize you need to start saving money for something you want. It doesn't matter what the situation is. The crux of it all is that you need to make a decision now. So what's happening is your brain goes into short-term relief. It's like something's wrong, right? We're out of our normal calm state. We need to fix what's wrong. And our brain literally shifts into it. The other thing is there's a fear future consequences of what actually might happen for us. And we actually don't know what that looks like. It may feel very abstract or very vague to us that we don't know what's going to happen. And so what that does is it presents an emotional charge that feels real, but it's not. And so, well, technically it's real because it's a situation that's actually happening to us. But when we think about it, if you look back, like, is anything that you've ever dealt with ever been that serious? Like, no. Like, you got through it, you figured out what to do, and you, like, your head didn't get cut off like a chicken. Like, you didn't start running around like a chicken. Like, you just figured it out like an adult. It may have been hard, but like, you just figured it out, right? So that is something that everybody goes through. And what happens is we just say, like, oh, you know, the decision I made, it may or may not make you feel like you're undisciplined because you're not following the plans that you previously had. But the issue is that your discipline did not disappear. It's just being overridden because your brain is switching into short-term relief to try to fix a problem that is new. So normally you're in a calm, easy state where everything makes sense, everything's fine. This is majority of the year. And then there are just some really tough moments where you don't know what's going on. Everything feels vague and abstract. You need to make changes. You need to have things shift around. You need to move, or something happens to someone near you or close to you. And it's really sad that we blame discipline and we call ourselves undisciplined, because discipline is not being, like, discipline is not missing. Discipline literally is just being overridden by our own brains, because we're human and we're wired that way. So the solution is the environment. It's not willpower. Like, if you try to go against your brain when it has shifted into survival mode, something it's had for the past almost 3,000 years, that every single human has, you're going to drive yourself insane, because what's going to happen is you're going to try to use willpower to do that, when really the solution is changing the whole entire environment itself. So it's not willpower. It's like no decisions in emotional states. So when you're feeling like you're very, very emotional about something, you have to take a second and say, I acknowledge I'm in an emotional state. I'm not making decisions right now. You need to have a delay on the decisions that you're making. You need to remove your ability to have impulsive action, because that is what you're overriding to do, because you're trying to fix things, because that's what our brain does. Our brain does that. Our brain tries to do short-term relief as soon as something goes wrong in our life. Half the time, if we never even did anything about it for a week, we'd be just fine, and we figure it out at the end of the day, because we always figure things out, because life is like that. Things will just fall into place the more that you learn, the farther you go. So you don't actually need to fix an undisciplined problem. I want us to release from that. But what we need to do is we need to protect the conditions where that discipline exists. And we need to put ourselves back into our normal, neutral, and calm mode. How do we do that? We do that by adding the delay, because that lowers the intensity that we feel, puts us back into our neutral state, and then we're able to use the knowledge that we have to make good decisions. And our brain gets out of its short-term thinking mode, that urgency, gotta do something now, gotta fix it now, gets out of that mode, and it goes back into, hey, I have access to my entire brain and all the knowledge I have and all the resources I have, and it doesn't shut off. The problem is that your brain is shutting off. Your brain is literally switching into a short-term thought process, a short-term relief process, because you're trying to survive. Whole time, it's 2026, nothing is that deep. So you have to be able to get yourself out of that. And even when I said that, like, oh, it's not that deep, it's not. Think about it. How many things have you been through that were hard that you no longer even think about? At one point, you never thought you'd get through it, and now you don't even think about it. So that means it's not that deep anymore, which means at some point, things change. They go back into calm. They go back into neutral. You get out of that short-term belief, or you get out of that short-term relief state that your brain goes into. So you have to first acknowledge that that you are going into a short-term relief period in your brain. Acknowledge that it's not really real. Acknowledge that it's just your brain trying to protect you. And then you go back and you protect the conditions of your life that keep you neutral. And that is how you move back into your neutrality as an adult, when you have to make very hard financial decisions and you're trying to understand how to get back into your logical thought process.